Barbara, can you see us? Okay, great. We're gonna put the spotlight on you then, okay? All right. Hi, everyone. I'm sorry for the glitch, but my name is Barbara Gaskin, and I was born and raised in Connecticut. I have went to American School for the Deaf, and I graduated in 75, then went to Gallaudet and got my BA degree in social work. Then I got a job in New Jersey at the New Jersey School for the Deaf as a dorm supervisor. While I was working in New Jersey, I commuted to New York University in order to work on my master's degree in deaf rehab and counseling. While I was in New Jersey, then I went to Pennsylvania School for the Deaf as assistant dean of students for 5 years, and I realized I missed New England, so I moved back here, and I actually got a job offer to work as a voc rehab under the Bureau of Rehab Services. So I'm now currently retired, and I'm still very involved in the community. I'm retired from work with 180 years in voc rehab. Do you want me to continue with more? Thank you. All right, thank you very much. Wow, we really have a wealth of backgrounds here. We have 2 ASD principals. How nice. Wonderful. So the first question I want to ask is, what are the issues that are faced by deaf people here in Connecticut and just in general? And we're going to do the same thing, is we're going to put the spotlight on pin individuals in a round robin style like we just did, okay?
And I'm here as the other interpreter if you need me.
After this. Okay, well, I'm the newbie here compared to everybody else. I've only been here 4 years. I'm still learning. Some of you I've just met for the first time, even just tonight. So when you ask me what the challenges are for the deaf community throughout the state of Connecticut, that's a really great question. We have a great school for the deaf in ASD, and there's a lot of strong mainstream programs here throughout Connecticut as well. And I do think that we could benefit from having more agencies in the government, more Connecticut nonprofit organizations as a whole to provide more services, and agencies to provide services for deaf adults. And why I'm saying that is because once people graduate from school, once those students graduate, what's next for them? Where are they getting support? VR services isn't an option, yes, but they only provide a small amount of services. There's so much more the state could do. For example, the seniors who are graduating, who just graduated from, when I ask what other deaf adults are doing throughout Connecticut, they're very isolated, they're very lonely. So I would love to see more things established, organizations and agencies that serve the deaf community, like maybe, for example, a peer mentoring program, or an alumni, where alumni connect with seniors, like just some way to maintain connections, something like that. I think that would be my main idea of what I think the challenges that are faced by deaf people in the state of Connecticut. Next, interpreter switch.
Okay, really some of the challenges that we're facing right now here in Connecticut is the one-stop centers. We used to have really here, they had a deaf and hard of hearing service program back then called the Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. really the first in the country, and we have nothing like that now. And issues arise with services, with teaching, training, all of those different interpreters, firefighters, police officers. Issues still arise to this day because we don't really have a one-stop center. Another issue that we've seen is younger people, recruiting younger people to be leaders for our future. And they say, no, we don't have a lot of time. And we really try because the deaf leaders today are getting older and older and older. And we really need to have the younger generation come in. We're growing. The Connecticut Agencies for the Deaf are growing, and they have been growing, but still, we really need to have the younger generation to work in partnership with us, in unison with us, and mostly because all of the panelists are members of Connecticut Association of the Deaf, all of them. One is actually a youth leader manager. I'll let them explain that for themselves, okay? But really, I want to see those things, the one-stop center, and also more youth leadership as well. We need to recruit that. That is a major issue here in Connecticut. Hello, I do want to say that as a volunteer firefighter, yes, some of the things that I've faced is barred communication from police pulling people over and deaf people not being able to hear, the gesturing, and this happens constantly. And the process is delayed, trying to write, to communicate back and forth. Even firefighters, thinking that we have time to communicate as firefighters, we don't. Everyone, get to the side. We need to move forward. There are so many issues that we need to address. Right now, I'm hopeful that from this moment forward, we'll be able to train more first responders and show them how to work with the deaf community, as well as BRS. I really support BRS, and I became a firefighter, a volunteer firefighter because of that. Younger people need, if they need any help, if they want any kind of contact CAD, reach out to us. We're here for you. If you need a hand, any kind of leadership, I'm here, we're here to help you. Don't think that there isn't any help available and you should just sit back and do nothing. We need younger people involved. I agree 100%, definitely. And we need you to be leaders for us. Okay, really, most of you already said some of the things that I was going to mention. However, I do want to share a few things. Growing up, I saw and heard a lot about the deaf community in Connecticut growing up before I graduated from high school. And there was quite the connection, a strong connection. And plus, we had CDHI also available. But after I graduated, and I've been out of state, I guess a total of 4 years in college, plus 12 years in California. So 16 years. Coming back, CDHI is gone. So most of the deaf leaders that who are on the panel, I mean, some of them were involved and strong advocates, encouraging that reconnection, that everyone to become one in the deaf community in Connecticut. But there's a lot that needs to be picked up there, and there's so many youth that we need to be involved. And myself, as a person, I'm involved with CAD as a youth coordinator. So really, I'm a member of CAD, and I want to encourage everyone, whether it be mainstream or the deaf schools in Connecticut, to be inclusive. And that's where I think that they can become leaders for the future. After they graduate, they can become our leaders in the community. Really, we do need that involvement. And also, not only that, but interpreters here. Sometimes some of the interpreters that we have, are registered, sometimes they're not. And that is a convoluted issue. There's an issue of communication, every place from appointments, dentists, hospitals, you name it, the whole gamut. And that's where we really need to expose Connecticut to teach them about the issues and the deaf education issues. There's a lot that they need to be exposed to in Connecticut, but let's not let that block us or be a barrier. We are able to work through this and make this connection for everyone. Next. Hi. The issue that we face here in Connecticut, really, there are a lot. First, when Louisa mentioned that one-stop shop, we need a centralized location where people can go to and have resources. We don't have any tangible places like that right now. And the lack of accessibility. I just said lack, but we do have some issues with accessibility in hospitals, not being able to get interpreters or VRI. Deaf people really don't have a lot of options. Some want live interpreters, some prefer VRI. So that is an issue. We did have a hospital who was faced with a lawsuit back in 1998. We were able to sue the hospital, actually 32 hospitals all over the state of Connecticut, to make sure that we had TTYs. Now, this was back in the day. We wanted a TTY in the lobby. We wanted a TTY in the patient's rooms. And we won that case. And it was fine for many years. And then we had an on-call system, the 211. So if there was an issue with a deaf person who needed medical attention, they could call 211, and 211 would put them in touch with an interpreter. So we had an on-call system. Now that system is no longer. That was a 10-year consent agreement, basically, with the hospitals and CASD. Captioning, television captioning. We met with the TV station several years back and asked them to ensure that they would set up captioning, because sometimes there would be a captioning, there would be a pause, the streaming would be too fast. That was another issue for a while that we decided we needed to meet with the television stations over a year ago. And we explained our frustrations with the live news, as well as the weather. There wasn't any captioning for those. So they assured us that they will make it work this year. So that was last fall. They said that we need to get new equipment. It's basically an automated intelligence to install that, and it will resolve the issues with the captioning. So I gave them a few months, nothing has happened. So the board decided to file something with the FCC. And it was a quick result. The FCC got involved. And actually, that was far worse than before Channel 3. And now it is far better than Fox News. Channel 30 and Channel 8 made some improvements, but there are still some issues. Let's see, what else do I have on here? During the COVID pandemic, it was quite challenging, because encouraging people to go out and get vaccines, a lot of deaf people were very afraid, especially without an interpreter present. So we met with the Department of Public Health to encourage them to have contract with interpreters. And they were supportive of that idea, but there was no movement. So we reached out to Harvard Healthcare place, and they set up 5 different places with interpreters. They were all set so that deaf people could go there, but unfortunately, it was a bit late. But that's okay, at least they had the opportunity to set that up. And I'm hoping that the next time, if we have to have another vaccine, say a booster, we know where to go. So again, it's kind of following up and making sure that services are accessible. I think that's all I have for right now. Great. Thank you for sharing. That is really important information. And having those resources available to students who graduate and move on, encouraging them to to become what they want and persist, not to give up. And having a centralized information center where people can see what's needed, what their interests are, and exposing all of them, the community. And again, recruiting and encouraging our youth to become leaders. I'm really looking forward to what the future holds, especially our youth. It was really inspiring. Hopefully they're inspired to also become future leaders. My next question. The deaf community here in Connecticut and around, it's thriving, it's growing, and it is succeeding. How would you describe what that means and what you see as far as thriving, growing? Why is the deaf community on the rise? That is a great question. I was thinking about how to identify why the community is thriving. I've lived in Maryland for a long time, and Maryland has quite the deaf community, a very strong deaf community. And what do you mean by strong deaf community? Well, the numbers of agencies and organizations that we have available, the services that we have in place, the people that we have in place. And keep in mind, people know how to advocate for themselves, which means that if they go to a doctor's office and something happens, there's not an interpreter or they're struggling, they know what to do. They know where to get help and how to address that issue in order to get the services they need. Now, when I moved to Connecticut, what I noticed, we do have the numbers of people here. We have an abundance of people in the deaf community in the state of Connecticut. And a lot of them are proud to live in Connecticut. And of course, it's a beautiful state. It has a rich history. It is an amazing state. 2 hours from New York, 2 hours from Boston. What a location. I do think that people, if they know how to self-advocate, and it's important in addition to having that centralized location, if you see people that are able to self-advocate, then that is one sign of a thriving community. People all over the state, including people who graduated high school, maybe not have any formal college, go into the employment field, people who may have not even finished high school, and people, educated people. It doesn't matter. The entire deaf community, if they are aware and know how to advocate for themselves, then to me, that is what I feel would be a requirement to make it identify as a thriving community. And we have, oh, sorry. The ability, we have the ability. Thank you for the clarification.
Ready to switch?
Not at all,
No.
unless you want. Okay, as Julia mentioned, I agree with that 100%. When I moved here, I realized that Connecticut had such a rich history. It's really where deaf education started. People are proud here, and it's really amazing in that way as a state. And we do have a lot of leaders that do work together quite well. I am impressed with that, with the people that we have, the people that I've met, the people that I've worked with. Now, it is a small state, and so that's positive. The positive of that is I get to travel around to meet different people. We're like a family here in Connecticut, really a family. We support one another. But now I feel these issues are starting to pop up. I know there was COVID, but still, with just working with our people here in our deaf community, they're very dedicated. People are working hard, and we would love to see more from the younger generations. But we now, we can't give up. We won't give up. Like back in the principal in the elementary school always said, you can and you will. And I always said, we can and we will persevere. And with the rich history that we have, and with the young people and the students. And yesterday I went to ASD just to try to gather and recruit some young people to join junior CAD, junior NAD, because of leadership. We need future leadership to replace the people like us who are getting older. We need the younger generation. And that's what I'm working really hard on now. Actually, I'd like to just make mention of one thing. She said that as far as self-advocating, I am a volunteer firefighter, as well as you said, we can and we will. That means what? You cannot, you should not say we can't. We can and we will, especially in the deaf community. There are signs everywhere that we're thriving. We are not left out. We will, and we are growing, and we will continue to succeed in the future, which means that all of us, looking at the older generation and saying we rely on them and let them take the reins. No, we let them rest and give them our love and let them have the rest, and we take over and continue their work with the younger youth groups that I'm working with. I'm trying to recruit them and build that group in order to make that happen. I don't want to see anybody fall through the cracks. It is impossible that that will happen with how strong our deaf community is in this state. I agree with you 100%. And with that, I'll switch interpreters.
Again, being the fourth person to comment, I'm, saying all the individuals who went before me kind of stole my line, but I agree with everybody's comments. Yes, really, when we talk about the community thriving, most deaf, blind, hard of hearing individuals in the community have self-advocate, and they have to know, they do self-advocate, and they know what they need, they know what they want for themselves, and that's how they are able to face adversity, figure things out, but not alone by themselves. They need to be able to ask for help and not be afraid to ask for help and support among themselves. And I really think that's a place where we can thrive. That's something that I've noticed. Plus my experience, I was gone for 16 years off, went to college, worked out of state, and I really saw a lot. And it was a very rich experience that I got from Gallaudet. The deaf community at Gallaudet is incredible. Plus in California, the California State University Riverside has a very strong deaf community. Julia mentioned Maryland, same concept in Maryland too. And those are the places where I really look, and I was able to get information and after being among those people, and I was able to bring that information here and know what we need here. And based on my experience, I know what can be done in order to help make that happen. And I am here to serve as an advocate for the the entire state of Connecticut. So really, most important is that if anybody needs help, please reach out to me. Get in touch with the other individuals on this panel too, because we are here to help you thrive as well. It's not just us who are making it through the ranks, but we want to see this Connecticut community, deaf community as a whole, back on the map. Thank you. Hello there. Some of the comments again are the same that everybody else said, but what I really see thriving is the partnership that we have with ASD, CAD, the Deaf Advisory Board for the deaf, hard of hearing, and deaf blind. COSD. We have all of these organizations, and they really are working well together in order to provide advocacy. For example, we have some legislative issues related to mental health, interpreting law, and those are the things that we need help with, and we are networking with each other, and COSD is involved with organizing those organizations. 2 years ago, we had different representatives on the school system, of educators, interpreters, RID, CED, deaf, blind persons. All of these individuals were advisors on the board in order to provide appropriate services and make sure that the legislators were on the advisory board occasionally with us as well. What else? But again, there are some things related to legislative leadership in the past. It doesn't always work, but we have developed a relationship with the legislators, and we have gotten involved with them and gotten things done. One-stop shopping. I don't know if I can keep saying the same thing over and over and over. The only thing that we are going to do as far as thriving is if we get legislators involved with us in order to help us push things through. We do have a great community, and I think the difference between the past and now is that we don't have TTYs, we have video phones, we have captions, and we put up and we fought and we got what we want, these services that we have now. And now this younger generation has come along and they have the technology and they don't know what it's like to go without services like we did in the past. So that's a big difference I see. And we need to get the younger generation involved, because in order to keep fighting for our rights and our access, that's what needs to be done. Thank you. Great. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. That was really beautiful what you had to say. I just wanted to add one thing for my experience in the deaf community. The Connecticut deaf community is very warm, very friendly. The panelists here, they were very willing and agreeable in order to get on the panel and work with each other. So that's really been a special time for us. And I really appreciate your time and your thoughts. We're getting to wrap up now, but first I want to see if the audience, maybe one or two people in the audience, have a brief question they'd like to ask. Anyone? Okay. Okay. There's a lot of people in the audience. There's a lot of Yale students too. The Yale students really, I want to focus on the Yale students because they are the future leaders. They're well-rounded people to lead their community. The ASL program at Yale is expanding. There's so many students getting involved, and we've hired 2 deaf professors. So there's 3 of us so far. Our chair is also here tonight. Rafaela, say hi to her. Hi, Rafaela. Hello, hello. Thank you for coming. Thank you. There's a lot of students here tonight that joined us. They're very motivated to watch, and I kind of want to let them have the final thoughts and leave it to the community of people in order to open their mind and partner up with the deaf community. Okay, Luisa, I think Luisa has something. Yale has a wonderful medical school, a law school, on and on and on. And I can think of any of us who want to become lawyers or want to become doctors, work in a medical field. Anyone wants to, they can open their mind and understand what the world of those fields bring with working with a deaf person, What about an attorney working in the deaf community? Right now, we don't have that. There's a lot of lawyers out there who have no idea what to do with a deaf client. So if they have more training for the medical students, like in Utah, they have a medical school training for students who are in medical school, like during their internship. Why not have something similar at Yale or any college in order to educate those medical professionals that it's okay to work with deaf patients? It's nothing to be scared of. They just can't hear. And what's important is that we have communication and a better understanding in order to improve interactions. Thank you. Hi there. I agree with what Louisa just said. Yes. And I want to make sure that none of you are afraid to or feeling unsure about what this is. What's important is we find a way to communicate with deaf, blind, and hard of hearing people. You can write back and forth. You can gesture or anything regard what you can do within your field, what you're studying. If you want to be able to give communication access to deaf, blind, and hard of hearing people in your field, you can learn sign language. You can apply that in your field, and that's not a problem. And we would appreciate your ability to communicate. It's very important. That's the crucial issue. And as for you knowing about the ADA law, yes, it's a fact. The Americans with Disabilities, some people don't know what that implies, but most of us depend on that. But again, now the general public looks at the ADA as weak, and we want to make sure that you realize that it's not a weak law. We still use that law for our communication access. The ADA is very crucial in order to ensure that really it's essential for our access. Thank you. Thank you.
Would you like to switch interpreter?
I'm all right for a sec.
Okay.
You mentioned ASD and the job opportunities. A long time ago, teachers were lining down the block. People were going to Gallaudet and different universities to become teachers for the deaf, but unfortunately that number is dwindling now because there's other job opportunities available now, like engineering, but there's more job opportunities and options for deaf individuals. And we're short of teachers and interpreters. So we encourage you, if you want to see ASD, I'm on the board of ASD, I would encourage all of you to ask for a tour, because the more you see, the more you will understand and get a complete picture of what a deaf school looks like. You know, the hospital has internships. We would encourage an internship to go to ASD, work at Adorn, work with the PACES students, the students with special needs. But again, if you want to develop a career, you can use ASD as a resource, and that will be fabulous. That's my 2 cents. Now we can switch.
Also, as far as the evenings, deaf people interacting, all of you are more than welcome to come here and learn about the deaf community, what they're facing, how they're facing, what they're feeling. You are more than welcome to learn, so that down the road, perhaps you can be more creative and do something with that information. So if you want any kind of information, feel free to come out and reach out to me. I would be more than happy. Sorry, there we are. Sorry, I just started going before I realized I was on the screen. I would like to also advertise where I work at St. Joseph's University, which is entirely an online program. You can take classes if you work full-time at the same time. You are able to do that. and get a degree in deaf education, special education with a focus on deaf and hard of hearing education. So that would give you an opportunity to work at ASD or at any other mainstream program around in Connecticut. We have a lot of students and a large program and a lot of students who are interpreters or use interpreters, teachers aid, or ASL students who become interested in deaf ed or the community. Feel free to reach out if you need more information. I also want to let you know that I just finished typing up some contact information. So if you need to reach out to me, it's there. You can take a look at the chat box, okay? Great. Great. Well, I would also like to add that our department chair said they were really thrilled to see all of the wonderful different members of the deaf community teaching, learning from each other, encouraging each other. And really, I just want to say, I appreciate all of you joining us. I know it's an evening, it's been a long work day, but to come and share with this and Zoom, I really look forward to hosting you again on our campus in person in the near future. I know that right now we're just scratching the surface on everything that's there that needs to be discussed. And it's really important and a very beautiful conversation to have. And I'm so glad you were able to join us to celebrate Deaf International Week, International Deaf Week. Oh, thank you. And now I'm going to stop recording. And for the audience, if you would like to pop in, say hello, interact, see one another in the community, the deaf community, the Yale community, by all means.